This table shows a relationship with seasonality. As you can see, these wells, well 1 is a demand well. It's only active during the summer months, and well 2 is active year-round. So in this case, it's important to define when this demand well is active and when it's taken offline, so we can know exactly how to schedule these source samples. Okay, this is a map that corresponds to the previous table. We've got a map of the distribution system. The stars represent total coliform roll sample sites. And there's also some information here on when the well 1 is pumping during the summer, it would contribute to this portion of the map. And then well 2 is more this area. This is a floating boundary, if you will, that depending on the pumping rates and the time of year it is going to determine the shift of this line. So that's an important detail with these maps. So to kind of summarize some of the data we're looking for triggered source monitoring plans, we've got well logs. Sean Abels earlier mentioned the importance of well logs, and they contain all your well construction data, geological data, and things like that we can compare and contrast between wells to determine if they truly are representative of each other. Well output is important, as I mentioned before. Pumping rates change, and those distribution boundaries can change depending on well output. Operational status of wells. This is if a well is operational year-round, if a well is a demand or emergency well. It's important to note this in your plan. And also maps and tables. It's very helpful when scheduling these source water samples that are required. And also wanted to mention, currently in Texas we have an exception process to rules, and if a system can't meet a certain rule, then they request an exception for that, and sometimes we make the system take monthly raw samples to meet a condition to that exception. So we have a database now. There's around 2,400 well sources that are currently doing the monthly sampling. That includes about 1,400 systems. And to give you an idea of the fecal hits, in 2008 we had, in this exception plan, we had approximately 677 total coliform hits in groundwater sources. And of those, there were 24 fecal hits. So of the 2,400 sources sampling, there was approximately 1% fecal positives in the sources. So it's a pretty low number. It's not a common thing, but it also stresses the importance of tackling these issues, and the groundwater rule gives us some additional tools to deal with source problems. Also, providers and receivers. These relationships are very important, and showing the receiver-provider relationship. If a system collects a sample and they have purchased water from a system, they must notify the provider within 24 hours of that total coliform positive. And then the provider in turn has to collect that source sample from their groundwater source within 24 hours of that notification. Some important time frames to think about are, one is labs. The labs, we're currently educating on the groundwater rule, and they need to be aware of this 24-hour requirement because we need to see these groundwater source sample results immediately. The groundwater systems also, if they plan on getting an exception to the triggered source monitoring by invalidation or by claiming a distribution deficiency, we've got to be in close contact with the system to process these requests and make sure that the system doesn't get a violation for not taking that source sample. And the system needs to have a pretty strong case in these instances because of the quick time frame. That 24-hour clock is ticking, so we'll need to process these requests very quickly. And also, as I just mentioned earlier, the purchase water systems in receiver relationships need to be tight with good contact information so they can get these samples taken in a timely manner. Briefly, public notification regarding triggered source monitoring. You can see the citations listed there on the screen. The 290-109G is part of the total coliform rule that incorporates the groundwater rule, but it describes the public notice requirements. And also in more detail, the 290.122 discusses in more detail how the system can accomplish these public notifications. The one that's related to trigger source monitoring is if a system fails to collect that sample within 24 hours, then they must notify their customers, and there's a 90-day requirement to get that posted and get it documented with a TCEQ in that time frame. Thank you very much, and I'm always available for questions. If you have anything, my direct line is listed there on the screen, and if you need information on guidance documents or just questions in general, just please feel free to give me a call at any time.